Sorry, I was
My
muted.
wine away.
Sorry, I was muted.
It's great. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
Auden, it's amazing to see you. Shabbat
Where is
Shalom.
There you
And
are.
Ginger and David, Shabbat Shalom. I don't see David, but I see you, Ginger. It's great to see you.
Okay, yeah, I'm just getting the computer to the table.
Perfect. Oh, and there she is. All right, let's see. I'll just do a quick
Rabbi.
spotlight. Is that all right? I know we have a service to start, so maybe.
So cute.
What a cute baby.
Little baby Ellie. Hello, Ellie.
Oh, she is beautiful.
Oh my gosh, and
She is.
my grandmother would say. So Rabbi Gelman, I know you're going to give us some directions and then we'll start our service.
Yeah, so I'll go on mute and Rabbi Conover, actually Cantor Katzman's gonna bring us in. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Okay, here we are. I have a little different setup, so I have to have a longer arm to reach over. All right. Please join in the Hine Matov. Hine Matov, Manai, Shevet Achim, Hine Matov, Manai, Shevet Achim.
Well, Shabbat Shalom. It's wonderful to see everyone. I love that Eli's here, and soon enough he becomes a bar mitzvah. So it's really fun to get to be here together, and it's so wonderful after a very busy week to be able to welcome in and gather for Shabbat as a community on this Sholom Justice Shabbat. On the Friday of Martin Luther King weekend. I love that this is a time for prayer that leads to action. And what a momentous week leading up to this Shabbat with the passage of historic legislation on criminal justice reform, passed in part by the hard work of many gathered this evening in coalition with many of our community partners. This week's Torah portion is Vayera, the second parasha in the book of Exodus. And with it, God begins to bring the plagues. And much is made over why God sends 10 plagues instead of God simply forcing Pharaoh to free the Hebrew slaves. Many prescient and provocative answers are given by the sages that we study year to year. And this year, what jumps out to me is a lesson in incremental change. That we want miracles for freedom and justice to happen overnight, just like that. But the truth is that we work and we work and we work, and months and years go by, and we don't see the miraculous changes that our society deserves. And then a good bill is presented and another, and then they're combined into an omnibus and passed by our legislature. And then we continue the work to hold all accountable to the implementation of these standards that we will hold, and that the standards that we already hold our officers. the standards that we hold our officers to protect our community in ways that are just and reflective of the equity that we all deserve. In the words of Dr. King, the arc of the moral universe is long. Change is incremental, but it bends toward justice. So what an honor to have with us those who help hasten the bending of that arc of our moral universe toward justice. Saul Anderson from iGrow. We are so grateful, not only that you're here tonight, but for the work that you do and that you continue to inspire us to do. You bring so much that makes an impact on the lives of so many through justice that is restorative and nourishing. And thank you to the leadership of Sholom Justice, Rabbi Gelman, Marla Gross, Maddie Major, Toby Sanders. Thank you for being our light. I know that many in the core team this evening will present different invitations to our various prayers. As we welcome in Shabbat, we take these hours to bask in the promise of a moral universe. So may we find light on this Shabbat that inspires us to bring about the change we want to see in this world. Maddie Major, Marla Gross, will you lead us in the kindling of light for Shabbat that will usher in this sacred time with light? Page 120.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of all, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
We continue now with two people who continue to inspire the vision of Sholom Justice, to usher in Shabbat with the sweetness of the fruit of the vine. We turn to page 123, Rise in Spirit, as Aaron Stone and David Lipschultz lead us in this blessing.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho v'ahava u'ratzon hinhilanu. Zikaron lema'aseh bereshit, ki hu yom tehila lemikra kodesh, zecher letziat Mitzrayim, ki banu v'acharta, v'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim. B'shabbat kodshecha, be'ahava u'ratzon, inhaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
L'chaim.
L'chaim.
And Aaron and David, thank you for your leadership in Sholom Justice, in bringing about so much good in this world. We love you. We turn now to pages 138 and then to 139 for L'chad. We, on the final verse, I think we're doing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. Is that correct, Cantor Katzman?
That is correct.
And at that final verse, we rise in spirit, and some of us even bow to the presence, imagining the Sabbath bride coming into our midst to bless this occasion.
לך דודי לקראת כלה, בשבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בשבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, בשבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, ושמו תפארת לתהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ונשבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ונשבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה. וראש מקדם לסוכה, סוכה שמח שבת תהילה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ונשבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ונשבת נקבלה. התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי. אורי, שיר דברי, כי באדוני אלייך תמיכה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ונשבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ונשבת נקבלה. בואי בשלום עטרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי חלה, בואי חלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ונשבת נקבלה. לך דודי לקראת כלה, ונשבת נקבלה.
Shalom Alechem. We invite messengers of peace to bless us and our world with peace. We turn to page 142.
שלום עליכם מלאכי השרת, מלאכי עליון. מי מלך מלכי העולם, הקדוש ברוך הוא. בואכם לשלום מלאכי השלום, מלאכי עליון. מי מלך מלכי המלכים,
messengers of peace. We keep in mind those in our community who are messengers of peace in many ways. And so it's an honor to invite Juliana Schaefer to lead us in a reading. Juliana, I want to say to you, thank you for bringing peace to so many places in our world, including into our prisons, making sure that there are pen pals who recognize everyone's humanity, and also all of us who are pen pals, how much we learn in return, that kind of mutuality, mutual respect, and gratitude for each other. Thank you, Juliana. Izzy and Chad, it's wonderful to see you. Thank you for all you do to help this world be a better place.
As the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, I refuse to accept the view that mankind is so tragically bound to the starless midnight of racism and war that the bright daybreak of peace and brotherhood can never become a reality. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. I believe that wounded justice, lying prostrate on the blood-flowing streets of our nations, can be lifted from this dust of shame to reign supreme among the children of men. I have the audacity to believe that peoples everywhere can have 3 meals a day for their bodies, education and culture for their minds, and dignity, equality, and freedom for their spirits. I still believe that one day mankind will be crowned triumphant over war and bloodshed, and nonviolent redemptive goodwill will proclaim the rule of the land. I still believe that we shall overcome.
Amen. And with that in mind, we rise toward that vision. Page 146, we join together for the Baruch Hu, our call to worship.
Let's continue with the Shema. On page 152. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Continue with the Ve'ahavta on page 36. Ve'ahavta את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם
אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
So I'll just say that some of us have seen that picture, iconic picture of Martin Luther King Jr. marching with Abraham Joshua Heschel and another Jew who's holding a Torah. And people often say, who's that? Well, that's Maurice Eisendrath of blessed memory. He was a lion in our movement. He was someone who worked relentlessly for civil rights through a Jewish lens and brought such pride to us and made such a difference in this world. We still need to march like he did. We still need to follow his inspiration. One of the things that he wrote was that when we sing the Shema, what we need to think about is as we're asking to recognize God's unity, we can only do so if we are unified as one humankind. And so as we continue to reflect through this service of what it means to come together as one, let's remember that Maurice Eisendrath, Rabbi Maurice Eisendrath, encouraged us in each and every age to find new ways to bring about unity.
Paige, oh, go ahead.
We are inviting up the incredible Marjorie Moss for a reading before Micha Mocha.
Hi, I'm reading Words by Eli Wiesel from Sages and Dreamers. True, we are often too weak to stop injustices, but the least we can do is protest against them. True, we are too poor to eliminate hunger, but in feeding one child, we protest against hunger. True, we are too timid and powerless to take on all the guards of all the prisons in the world, but in offering solidarity to even just one prisoner, we denounce all the tormentors. True, we are powerless against death, but as long as we have one man, one woman, one child live 1 hour longer in safety and in dignity, we affirm a human's right to live.
We're at Micha Mocha on page 158. Turn to Hashkivenu, our prayer for protection, comfort, and peace on page 160.
Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, lehamidenu shomreinu lechayim. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leShalom, lehamidenu shomreinu.
in spirit as we turn to Amidah, our prayer where we recognize our ancestors and everything they did to get us to this moment on page 164.
La 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'Imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
Invite Marilyn and Fred Oskin for a reading before our silent prayer.
We cannot merely pray, adapted from Jack Reimer. We cannot merely pray to God to end war, for the world was made in such a way that we must find our own path of peace within ourselves and with our neighbor.
We cannot merely pray to God to rid out prejudice, for we already have eyes with which to see the good in all people, if we would only use them rightly.
We cannot merely pray to God to end starvation, for we already have the resources with which to feed the entire world, if we would only use them wisely.
We cannot merely pray to God to end despair, for we already have the power to clear away slums and give hope, if we would only use our power justly.
We cannot merely pray to God to end disease, for we already have great minds with which to search out cures and healings, if we would only use them constructively.
Therefore, we pray instead for strength, determination, and willpower, to do instead of merely pray, to become instead of merely to wish, that our world may be safe and that our lives may be blessed.
Take a moment now for silent prayer and reflection. When you're done, you can be seated.
Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri, Goali. Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri, Goali. Shalom bimromad, uyaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevet ve'imru
Amen. Our world is in need of so much healing right now. It feels almost staggering. And so we face that feeling of overwhelmingness and of intensity with prayers of hope for all of the people in our lives who need healing of body, healing of spirit. So please take a moment to unmute yourself and share the names of the people you're thinking of out loud, or to type them in the chat for our Misha Berach.
Liviana Marie Sulzer.
Can say anybody. No, you have nobody?
Cynthia Given.
You want to say me those names?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Wally Windsor, Kathy Dorothy.
Eddie Zilberbrand.
Madeline Silman.
Chris, Dennis, Mike, Mary, and Billy McDermott, and Elliot Marcus.
Carlos Rizawi,
We add to those names Don Sabol, Dave Sussman, Jim Clemens, Nina Grimes, Marge Goldberg, Susan Cody, Barry Ballack, Brian Pernick, Rochelle Baddock, Elaine Baddock, Jonathan Spitz, Sam Jacobson, Gary Schroeder, Linda Harvard, Warren Stippick, Marge Hilliard, Bob Gold, Helen Ryback, Stephen Summers, Bay Davis, B. Davis, Dee Dee Cohen, Eric Boyd, Avner Drucker, Dear Loon, Elizabeth De Bruyne, Alec Jaladen, Stephanie McGee, Melissa Josephs, George Bacon, Rabbi Ellen Dreyfus, Joshua, Tony D'Angelo, Gigi Green, and Bethany Lampland, Florence Bernberg, Stan Gross, Jerry Castillo, Donald Lubick, and Cantor Shira Ben David, Sonia Shapiro, Amy Heading, Millie, June, and Dan, Bob Tarnoff, Ronnie and Marissa Green, Hazel Golden Lee, Sarah Blazik, Sari Lipschultz, Connor Keefe, Marty Ross, David Gordon, and Abby Tate. We turn to Misha Berach on page 371.
Berach Avotenu Mekol habracha Limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekol habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
In last week's Torah portion, we got the exciting burning bush. Everything was on a great path, right? God said, I'll bring you into the land that I swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, and I'll give it to you as a possession. And in the very next verse, but when Moses told this to the Israelites, they couldn't even listen to Moses, their spirits crushed by cruel bondage. This had me thinking about a Martin Luther King Jr. quote that he wrote in his letters from the Birmingham jail in 1963. We know through painful experience that freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressor. It must be demanded by the oppressed. How the Israelites had no idea how to leave their bondage. And I'd add to this thought that it also must be demanded by all people who seek goodness and justice in our world. We, our Temple Sholom Justice community, we hope and we work to be the light in darkness that helps to bring goodness and justice into our world. Months ago, in discussing this Shabbat, the core team, the leadership of Sholom Justice, worked hard to find a leader and an organization in our city who is doing great work in addressing food insecurity, doing restorative justice work, providing wrap-around services for human need and solutions that come from within the community. All this bringing communities together through love, commitment, and engagement. In that search, our wonderful Bonnie Podolsky told us about an organization that she has been a part of. She introduced us to Saul Anderson and the inspiring work of Sholom of Chicago in the West Englewood neighborhood. And momentarily, I'm going to introduce Bonnie to tell us more about Saul Anderson, his work as the executive director, and all about Sholom of Chicago. And I want you all to know that this incredible taste of Saul, his story, and the story of Sholom is just a small taste of our time tonight with him. For after services, we are going to have a moment to chat, to welcome each other, wish each other Shabbat Shalom. And then we're going to move and engage in a conversation and a question and answer with Saul. And on that, I invite up the inspirational Bonnie Podolsky. Thank you so much for your great work in our community and for connecting us to such an inspiring leader.
It is my pleasure to introduce Sal Anderson in the important work of Sholom of Chicago. I will never forget the first time I went to West Englewood. Even knowing about the 30-year difference in life expectancy between the residents of West Englewood and River North, where I live, did not prepare me for what I saw when I made the 12-mile drive to the Peace House. The neighborhood was dominated by boarded buildings and vacant lots. In 2013, Robin Carroll stood at the corner of 64th and Honore passing out sandwiches. When neighbors approached to ask what she was doing, she responded to a question with a question. Do you want to take back your neighborhood? And so a brave, courageous partnership was formed, and now a neighborhood is being transformed. Sholom's mission is to grow the community from surviving to thriving through their vision of a world where love lives in public. Sholom works at the intersection of individual healing and collective change. They view their neighbors as experts and foster leadership from those most affected by violence and trauma. Their work is powered by community and sustained by those who dare to hope. Sholom has expanded from their first building, the Peace House, to a Peace Campus, which now includes a community garden, a basketball court, a nature play lot, and several more renovated buildings where they provide a wide range of programming and services for all ages, from school children to the elderly. Sal Anderson joined Sholom in September 2020 at a pivotal time in Sholom's development. Over the past year, the size of the team had increased in response to the critical needs exacerbated by the pandemic. Sal hit the ground running, building infrastructure both to strengthen the team and to develop Sholom's capacity to execute its vision of a thriving community. He leads with integrity, compassion, and good humor. Sal brings over 13 years of nonprofit experience, most recently working at Lift Chicago, where he cultivated key new partnerships and developed innovative programs to help families meet their personal and financial goals. Under Sal's leadership, Lift's members significantly increased their income and their savings. So please join me in welcoming Sal Anderson.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and Rabbi Gelman as well. Thank you, and thank you all for having me here tonight. I feel so fortunate to be able to sit in and experience this Shabbat Shalom, this Shabbat with all of you, and I have a number of Jewish neighbors, and I've always had such admiration for the way that in your community you're able to combine your faith, your family, your culture all into one. It's something that as a Black man that was taken from us when we were removed from our homeland, and so I've just so feel so grateful, first of all, to just have this opportunity to sit with you all in worship and in family. It's just been a privilege. And I'm thankful for this opportunity to talk a little bit about iGrow. But I think to start, I'd like to share a little bit about myself, to kind of talk about my journey and how I came to this work and to iGrow Chicago. So I'm the son of a sharecropper. My father was born in Clarksdale, Mississippi, near the Mississippi Delta, very near Memphis, Tennessee. He's one of 14 kids. And kind of in the late 50s, during the period of the Great Migration, my grandparents brought all of their children north to Kalamazoo, Michigan. And through a lot of hard work, a lot of sacrifice, they were actually able to send all 14 of their children to college. And when I was a kid, I thought, that my family was just so special to have done that. And I'm still very proud of my family, obviously, for that. And I know that put me in the position that I'm in. But as I got a little older, I started to think, wow, it's a shame that can't be more people's story, that my family must have been really lucky. And now, in my life and in my career, I've moved to the space that I think that it's a shame that the system is, depending on how you look at it, either broken or set up so that some people can't succeed, so that can't, to the point where that can't be more family stories, and particularly can't be more Black family stories in America. And so, when I graduated from college, I grew up in the Church of God in Christ, a Pentecostal denomination, the second largest Black denomination in the United States. There was a woman there, our head usher, Mother Montgomery, a woman who I thought was just angry with me every moment of my life growing up. Took every piece of candy I tried to sneak in church, every piece of gum, every time I tried to sneak and read something other than a hymnal or a Bible, she was right on me. My dad, as a minister, often wasn't right next to me, so she made sure I acted right. When I came home after graduating, she gave me a hug and she told me, "Now, Saul, you have to go and help us." And, I took that to mean that, it was my responsibility, my calling, and the duty that I bore to reach out to my community, reach out to my people, and do what I could to help create more stories where families could break out of these shackles of oppression that have held, many cultures, and particularly Black families in America in shackles for so many years. And I've taken that very seriously for the last, I've been in this work, rounding when you take my kind of, my frontline work and all of that, coming around, getting close to 2 decades. And it's been my burning passion to liberate Black folks from the cycles of oppression that have trapped us for generations upon generations. And, in 2016, during the spike in shootings in Chicago, I actually lost my second cousin to a shooting death that year on the south side of the city. And we weren't, close or anything like that, but my dad and his dad were very close, and he was his father's first son, and I'm my father's first son. And I thought back to that story of my grandparents and the sacrifices that they made to put me in this position, and sort of the different story that his family had. And it really made me think just about how often, poverty and the oppression that Black folks face in America leads to death, particularly for young Black men. And that it really kind of changed the trajectory of my career. As Bonnie mentioned, I spent a number of years at Lyft, an organization that I love dearly and still support. But I really started to think about how important it was for me to do some work to combat the violence that is stealing the lives of young Black people. And that brought me to the corner of 64th and Honorary. Didn't really even know about iGrow Chicago, and just was contacted by a recruiter. But sometimes the best things happen I believe because of these strange twists of fate and fortune. And for those of you who haven't had an opportunity to visit our Peace Campus, and as Bonnie mentioned, we want to create a world where love lives in public. Love lives in public on 64th and Honorary. There's a visceral love, a love that you can feel, that you can sense when you're there. And that's not just because of iGrow Chicago. What we are is a reflection of the love that actually lives in our community. So often when you watch the news and you hear people talk about Inglewood, and even about West Inglewood, little kind of a Chicago's little secret that, West Inglewood is in many ways sort of a more marginalized, than community of Inglewood. When people talk about investing and doing work, we often talk about Inglewood, but West Inglewood gets left in the background. And you can see that, just based on the number of organizations and the presence of the infrastructure that we have around us to be able to work with. But despite those challenges, we find every day that our community members step up for each other with love. It's not a community where if someone has something, they won't share it with their neighbor. It's not a community where if you have a room to spare and your neighbor doesn't, you won't give it. In fact, the opposite is true. And I think that's a sort of a misconception about people who live, where resources are scarce. Our community is full of love, it's full of kindness and full of sharing. And what we have done as an organization, I believe, is just reflected that love. We have given that love greater space to shine on our Peace Campus and through the work that we do. And we certainly have to jump over many hurdles. Yes, there is violence in our community, but I think the greater issue is that the world is violent to our community. And that's what covers the love that exists in that neighborhood. 15% of the people in our neighborhood don't have regular access to clean drinking water. Nearly 60% of our neighborhood is, unemployed. Nearly half of our neighbors have faced some form of incarceration. And most of the crimes that we see aren't crimes of maliciousness. They're crimes of poverty. They're, stealing or even selling drugs, quite frankly, to be able to feed your family because there's nothing else available. And, if all you do is look at the crime statistics, you don't see those issues. The crime statistics don't tell you that 15% of our neighbors also didn't sleep in a bed last night. They don't tell you about, that nearly 2/3 of our neighbors are food insecure, and how all of those things create this circumstance where it's just really difficult to let this love that lives inside our neighbors shine through to the rest of the world. And it creates a circumstance where an untrue story can be told about our neighborhood. And so the work that we've been doing since, as Bonnie said, since 2012, 2013, that started with Robin Carroll, who was, truly an inspiration. I talk to her quite frequently and, work with her to try to make sure that I'm, leading the organization in the right way, still being relatively new to the job. But for her to go there and see that love and to do what she could to magnify it and give community members an opportunity to bask in that love, more so than in the oppression and the violence that exists around them, I think was a great testament to her fortitude and her strength. But also it allowed for, opportunities for people to see the true West Englewood and the true people that live there. And I'm just very proud to be a part of the organization. I'm very proud to have the opportunity to continue to magnify that love, to continue to give a voice to our neighbors who are often voiceless, to continue to talk about the problems that force our neighbors into situations where they cannot find paths out that are the types of paths you want to take, right? Where when your back is against the wall and you're living in poverty, I think that just circumstances that none of us could say that we wouldn't do some of the things that our neighbors have had to do just to survive. And I say neighbors very specifically because we're not a traditional organization where we see ourselves as some monolithic institution on the corner and we're serving people who come in. We are a part of our community, and everyone who comes into the Peace House is a part of our community. They're a part of our family. They are our neighbors. And so we see our work as being, our work around, as Rabbi Gammon said, helping with food insecurity, helping people find jobs, helping people get IDs, covering basic needs, the restorative justice, the yoga-informed practices, those things that we're doing, we think are just the process that, that you see in any neighborhood, where when your neighbor needs flour, you lend them flour. When your neighbor needs sugar, you give them sugar. And you do that because they're your neighbor, and you know that when you need it, they're going to give it back. And that's what we do, is our programming is really about that. We're giving love because we know when we need it, we're going to get it back from the community. And so, that is what iGrow is all about. And I saw, that our website is in the chat here. It's igrowchicago.org. We are here to help our neighbors, but we're also here to build bridges from West Englewood to the rest of Chicago and to the rest of the world, so that everyone can see, the beauty, the power, the strength, and the love that we get a chance to see every day.
Thank you, Saul. I have heard you speak a couple of times now, and your passion for this work, how you have come to this work, and the community building, which is at the core of your work, is so profound. You truly build collective power with a society to liberate people. That is something that you and iGrow do every single day. And we're going to hear more about you and more about iGrow Chicago, especially how we can be partners, how we can work with you to make West Englewood and Chicago and our world a better place. In our work, and so we're going to do that in our question and answer afterwards and our community conversation right after. So we'll stay on Zoom or on Facebook Live. We'll stay on to engage in that. Before we move to the Aleinu and our concluding prayers, I want to call upon my other rabbis about any other exciting things going on in our Temple Sholom community in the coming weeks.
Rabbi Singer, I hope that you're going to share with us about Anat Hoffman coming this Sunday. It's so exciting with Women of Temple Sholom's sponsorship.
Yes, it's just incredible how many extraordinary leaders are coming into our community through this technology. It's kind of overwhelming, but we have Rabbi Anat Hoffman, who is a true, like a literal warrior, I guess, for women's rights and for liberal religious freedom in Israel, who's just so inspirational and is just working so hard for the values that we hold so dearly, is coming to speak to us at 10:45 a.m. It's co-sponsored by WTS and the Adult Education Team. And she's speaking to us at 10:45 a.m. on Sunday. And I just can't express enough how cool she is. So you should totally be there.
I love that. And if you need an opening act that morning, I'm teaching a class at 9:30 where we're looking at all these different stories and poems and art installations that help us to reflect on this time of COVID and to be able to get through this winter with warmth and inspiration. So that'll be at 9:30. And again, I'm the opening. I'm the opening, and I can't wait for the main act. Again, Rabbi Anat Hoffman. Yes, I'll second that she is not only cool, but I think for so many of us, truly a source of inspiration, not only with what she does in Israel, but how much she loves Hebrew, loves Israel, and loves this relationship between Jews in America and Jews and everyone who inhabits the entire land of Israel. And so I am very excited for that as well.
She is truly the coolest. And a program that I'd like to highlight is in just 2 weeks, our Sholom Justice Eco Chavara is having a Tu B'Shvat Seder. So we're going to celebrate the new year of trees, like the birthday of trees, and mixing that with contemporary issues about our world and about how we can talk about sustainability and the dangers of climate change. So keep a pin on that date in your calendar as we look forward to that. And so we are going to turn in our prayer books once again to page 586 as we rise in body and spirit for the words of Aleinu L'Shabeach.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
the work that we do in our world to make it a more just place. We do it often in memory of, in honor of, and alongside the spirit of those who have passed away from this earth. On this Friday, on this Shabbat, our Temple Sholom community is thinking about those who have passed away in this last month. Sharon Deutsch, Dale Bina, Gloria K. Brisman, Saul Machanik, Jack Calabro, Katie Cutlip, and Katrina Ray. And we recognize those whose yard sites are observed in this week now ending. Mercedes Abrams, Shale Baskin, Robert Berman, Sidney Burrs, David Cohn, Wayne Dale, Dr. William Didkowski, Franchon Ehrlich, Abraham Farsht, Abe Golub, Dr. Jacob A. Goodman, Kurt Gutman, Esther Huber, Jenny Hyman, Gloria Jamie, Elizabeth Jones, Abe Carnes, Lev Kodosh, Gussie Lasko, Isidore Lasser, Francis Leventrit, Samuel Levi, Dr. Oscar Lisker, Helene Mann, Edna Miller, Marian Louise Morris, Helen Narevsky, James M. Pines, Rose Sampson, Judith Samuels, Stuart Sharp, Alfred Charles Stanley, Jerry Taylor, Joseph L. Tobin, Sidney Weinig, Libby Weinstein, Lenore Wexler, Ida Siegel Wolf. And if we have other names to add to the chat or to say aloud, I invite you to do so.
Howard Leon, Sandra.
Cooper.
Carol Bennick.
Nick Norris.
Eli Bernstein.
Morris Schoenfeld.
David Gunning.
And we add to those names Doris Libman, Hy Goldberg, Adele Roche, Morris Schoenfeld, Bill Gass, Charlene Rose, Lisa Montgomery, Ted Barco, Kim Goen, Sherry Kamiko Goodman, Robert Nussbaum, John M. Griffith, Edward Goldstein, Warren Stipich Sr., Ruth Rappaport, Rosalind Maskin, as well as, and that concludes our names as we continue with the words of Kaddish Yatom on page 598.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובימיכון, וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ויאמרו אמן. יהא שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא. ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה. תושבחתה ונחמתה. דאמירן בעלמא ויאמרו אמן. יהא שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו אמן. עושה שלום, שלום, שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ויאמרו
Our service may be coming to a close, but our evening together is not. we are going to conclude with the words of Olam Chesed Yibaneh, a world that we can build from love. May we build this world from love.
Olam chesed yibaneh, tararai, rai, rai, rarai, rai. Olam chesed yibaneh, tararai, rai, rai, rarai, rai. Olam chesed yibaneh, tararai, rai, rai, rarai, rai. Olam chesed yibaneh, la la la, la 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 la. I will build this world from love. Da 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 da. And you must build this world from love. Da 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 da. And if we build this world from love, da 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 da, then God will build this world from love. Da 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 da
Let us together build this world from love. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat
shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat shalom.
shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat
Shabbat shalom,
shalom.
everybody.
Aaron and David, Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Robert. Miss seeing you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
I like background.
My favorite characters.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom,
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, Mark and Bill. Hi, guys.
Hi, guys. Hi.
Shabbat shalom, Aviva.
Shabbat shalom, Aviva.
Love you.
See all your faces. Oh.
Cantor Katzman, I asked Rabbi Gelman and Saul about this earlier, and they said, well, of course. I said,
Look like they made it.
we have time for one joke from Cantor Katzman.
Wow.
He said, Shabbat would not be complete without a joke from Cantor Katzman.
Right.
Even though that Shabbat is really entered.
Okay. Okay. So Chaim went to see his rabbi, and he said, Rabbi, last week I missed saying the blessing after meals. The rabbi said, why? And he said, Chaim said, because I forgot to wash my hands before the meal. So the rabbi said, that's twice you've broken the law, but you still haven't told me why. So he said, well, the food wasn't good. You ate non-kosher food? Asked the rabbi. Well, it wasn't a Jewish restaurant. Worse, said the now very angry rabbi. Couldn't you have eaten in a kosher restaurant? So, what? On Yom Kippur?
On Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur. I like it.
That's all I got. Okay.
Oh my gosh, that was good. Did you use this
That was a
whole
good
week
joke.
preparing for Shabbat, just finding that joke?
Yes, I got nothing else
That was
accomplished.
pretty funny.
Oh, look at the Levinsons continuing to hint to us. We made a beautiful challah. darn it. We would like to say Motzi for this with this community. And we say to you, Levinsons, please do so. We love you. And I mean, talk about being able to bring more love into the community.
Oh, she made that.
Yeah.
Wow. That looks good.
Wow.
Hamotzi
Let's give thanks to God for bread. Our voices rising in song together.
as our joyful prayer is said. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu
Eloheinu
Shalom. Hamotzi lechem.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much, Levinson.
You know, and I love that you led the motzi with the melody that we use for the Monday meal. So that was perfection. Thank you. And they say, of course, because we volunteer often with Monday meal. So thank you.
Welcome. We wish you could share.
I know.
I wish you could too.
I know. You don't wish it as much as we do.
I'll give you my address.
Well, Rabbi Gelman, are you and Saul? We're so looking forward to this.
Yeah,
and say another just thank you to you, Rabbi Gelman, for having the wisdom to lead Sholom Justice with such vision, to be able to, when you hear from someone who like Bonnie Podolsky share about an extraordinary community, that you say, oh, we have to hear from them. We have to partner. They're going to help us bring more love into this world. Let's do this. And so, Saul, I want to say to you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you again for the work that you do, for bringing more love into this world, for showing us a path to bringing more love in the world, and that we do so with each other, not for each other, with each other. So thank you so much, Saul. We can hardly wait for this conversation. And thank you, Rabbi Gelman, for being able to partner like this tonight.
And it is not just me who does great work. I want to just quickly tell us and share a bit more about the Sholom Justice community, the Sholom Justice people who do incredible work and what we do. We partner with so many community partners like the Jewish Council and Urban Affairs, One Northside, the Illinois Gun Violence Prevention Coalition, as well as the Religious Action Center of Illinois, the Chicago Help Initiative, Feeding the Hungry, and the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, welcoming those into our communities. And if you want to get involved, there are a multitude of ways in Sholom Justice. Just our in-house programs, our Monday meal, which is looking a little different these days, but we're still packing meals and feeding the hungry of our neighborhood. Feed the Hungry, providing almost 200 meals twice a month. And our restorative justice work, especially with our critical partners, the Precious Blood Ministry of Reconciliation and Circles and Ciphers. We have a pen pal program. We have Eco Chavara, which has a great Tu B'Shvat Seder coming up. We have blood drives through Vitalant, our advocacy action group, and our Gan Emunah. If you ever want more information about how to get involved in Sholom Justice, you can always to contact Toby, the incredible Toby Sanders. But for now, we engage with our incredible guest. Saul, again, thank you for being here. Thank you for blessing us with your presence. I want to begin with a question about, with the words of others who have spoken on this bima on this stage. I mean, we're all at home, but you get the idea. But on this special day, recognizing the great work of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And our Sholom Justice community doing that work each day. So Brian Stevenson spoke to our congregation a couple of years ago for our Sholom Justice Shabbat about getting proximate and providing radical hospitality. Now, iGrow exemplifies these objectives with its "if in doubt, love" approach. iGrow says that it serves the community as an example of what love looks like in public. iGrow created a wisdom council and a youth council of community members for guidance about what the community wants and needs. So I'd love to hear from you about that sense of community in the neighborhood that you serve, their willingness to trust and work with iGrow's founder, Robin Carroll, and how iGrow approaches this idea of leading with love and how that is contributed to the community.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it all starts with, as you said, this idea of getting proximate, right? Because, you know, I've worked, as I said, in this space for a number of years, you know, in the human services, nonprofit world, whatever you want to call it. And I've been fortunate throughout my career to have been able to work with organizations that don't act this way, including iGrow, and I think especially iGrow. But there are a number of organizations, a number of of folks that think that expertise in social work or human development or any number of these kind of fields, or even business management and all these things, means that you know how to serve a community better than that community knows how to serve itself. And I think that sort of goes back to, you know, we have a narrative in this country that poverty is a fault of character, right? That if you live in poverty, or that if you have any sort of issue, that it's your fault rather than a system that's again, depending on your perspective, either broken or a system that put you in that space, right? And so then we don't listen to people who live in a community to ask them what they need for their lives to be better, for them to have a chance to not only survive, but to thrive. And I think that's the sort of foundational flaw in human services. And I, you know, even going back to sort of the beginnings of nonprofits, when, you know, the beginning of charities, right? They were wealthy people, you know, who decided that they had so much money that they wanted to give it to some of these poor, unfortunate folks, but they were going to tell these poor, unfortunate folks what it took to fix them. And so that system has just continued to perpetuate itself. And iGrow really takes a different approach to that, right? The iGrow says, you know, as Bonnie mentioned at the top, you know, Robin went to the corner and said, do you want to take back your neighborhood? And I think in her, you know, and Robin is a tremendously successful businesswoman, and, you know, incredible, strong personality, and so smart, really brilliant. And she could have come, you know, very easily come in, you know, with this perspective, well, I can figure out how to fix this. But she asked people, and not only she asked people, she said, you know, let's do this together. Not even just saying, I ask you and I'm going to go do it, but I ask you, I'll bring, you know, the resources that I have to bear, and I'll come to the corner here and I will work with you and get my hands dirty with you to make that happen. And, you know, when that's how you start, that, you know, that's how you kick off an organization, how you begin your work. There's no opportunity to really ever leave that behind, you know, and in fact, and you know, and you know, as the leader of the organization, it's sometimes I often chuckle about it with some of our staff, the number of times where, you know, I might want to make a decision, people in the community, you know, who question and say, well, you know, I've been here since the very beginning, you don't, you know, and I love that buy-in. I'm like, all right, then let's get it together. Let's get it right together. And so it's just really lived through, you know, it's just something that just is a foundational part of our ethos is getting close, getting proximate. And then, you know, kind of pointed the hospitality piece. So you have to be hospitable when you're doing this together. That house, if we don't share the buildings and the lots that we own, then we're gentrifiers. You know, we're coming in, fixing these places, making it hard for people to leave. They have to be community spaces. So we have to have that radical hospitality, or we're a part of the problem. We're perpetuating the problem. And so all of that has to live in our organization for us to be who we are, and for the community to accept us, right? Because we're nothing without the community. We'd be gone in a heartbeat if people didn't come and take it, you know, be a part of the things that we do.
Such community-driven work. And I want to offer for all of those who are here, the 60-something households that are tuning in here, if you have any questions, to send them in a direct chat to not to Marla Gross, excuse me. And so if you go to the chat, you click the to button and you search Marla. Marla Gross will be right there. You could send her a direct message for our Q&A afterwards. Temple Sholom has several programs that address food insecurity. How has IGRO addressed food insecurity? And as you spoke about in your words, access to water. How and what did this look like before the pandemic, and how did this change in the last 10 months?
Yeah. So before the pandemic, and unfortunately, I wasn't able to directly witness this other than a couple of times when I got to see the Peace Campus in action over the summer as I was interviewing. But before the pandemic, we addressed food insecurity by sitting down and eating meals in community together. So, we recently had our Share the Love holiday drive. We gave out over Christmas gifts to over 1,200 children in our community. We had a Thanksgiving giveaway where we gave out, a few hundred turkeys, and then I believe somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,200 full Thanksgiving meals that we gave out in the community. So typically we would do all that together. We would sit down and eat Thanksgiving dinner together. We would sit down and eat, a Christmas dinner together, a holiday dinner together. And in addition to that, Bonnie also mentioned our Peace Garden. So we have a large sort of 2 vacant lots that were turned into a garden where we grow fresh vegetables. Gregory Bratton, our master gardener, who works, you see a lot of the, community gardens around the city. The chances are that Gregory has played some hand in the development of them. He's works all over the city and does a lot of stuff, but IGRO is in a lot of ways his home garden. I'm saying that, I don't know if he will, but we're his home garden. And so, not only is he teaching folks, giving folks the benefit of eating this fresh food straight from the ground, right? Not processed. And the thing you have to understand too is like how big a deal it is to have a garden in West Englewood, because we have so many members of our community who shop at the gas station, not even at a corner store, not even at a bad grocery store, at the gas station. So when you get fresh food right in your neighborhood and you can take a tomato and bite it, like that's a different thing than buying a tomato from a gas station, produce section. That's a different experience. And not only is Gregory doing that, but he takes a lot of sort of traditional things, he learned growing up in the South that really come from, our roots in Africa in terms of growing vegetables and things like that, and puts those in. So using wood ash as a pesticide, teaching people, and things like that, teaching people how to care for the food and nurture the food as a part of the earth. So, the food insecurity also, I think plays a dual role of helping folks in our community understand the deep ties that we have to the soil here, not only kind of historically in Africa, but also the soil here in America. Like we tilled it, so we have a lot of stake in that as well. So and Gregory's teaching all of those things.
Yeah, it's the soil where you live. It is not food brought in from somewhere else, but your community right there on your block. We grew it together.
Yes.
With that work that IGRO does, I know that IGRO trains and employs community members to work on the construction projects on the campus. There's a number of incredible, beautiful videos on the Facebook page interviewing people who have done work on the playground and so many different parts of the campus. And these provide not only jobs, but skills so that people can move into employment. I'd love if you could get a little deeper into the barriers to unemployment and the need for government issued IDs and the difficulty in getting those and the difficulties that members face, and how IGRO addresses some of these employment issues.
Yeah. So I think it all starts from the issue, the challenge that instability breeds instability. Right? So if you are housing insecure, it's really hard to hold on to your ID. It's really hard to hold on to your birth certificate. If you are moving from apartment to apartment, or are living in an illegal rental, or are evicted and are sleeping on a friend or a neighbor's couch, keeping this little, few inch square piece of plastic, or worse, a small piece of paper, virtually impossible, right? That's not a it just doesn't, when your brain is so focused on survival, you're not thinking about things like that, right? And I think that also, so that feeds into two areas. So first, there is just this idea of the sort of logistical items that you need to be able to check off to get a job. So keeping a resume, keeping your ID, keeping all those things up to date. And then you've got this sort of other end where so much of your brain is focused on survival. Also, sort of workplace soft skills, the development of those becomes a very, I wouldn't even say secondary or tertiary or below, sort of, that in terms of your brain's priorities, right? You're focusing on survival. And so, survival often means when you live in a world that's very tough. Again, when I say this, I want to make clear, I'm not just saying that our neighbors are tough on each other. I'm saying the world is tough. The world is violent to our neighborhood. And I say that over and over again because I think it's very important for people to hear. So the world is violent to our neighborhood. And so our neighborhood has to respond in kind in some ways, right? You have to focus on survival. And that means there is oftentimes very little space for sensitivity. So you get to a job and you're working in quite frankly, a minimum wage job where your employer isn't going to come to you respectfully and say, hey, how do we work this problem out? Your employer might snap at you. You're going to snap right back because that's how you survive, right? And that doesn't mean that you're less than someone else. It means that this is what you do to survive, and this is how you protect yourself, right? Like you have to protect your whole inner and outer self from the world coming against you, conflicts in your neighborhood and all these sort of things. And just these little things that many of us take for granted can often, make you vulnerable to being victimized in our community, right? And so, those aren't things that you just develop naturally. And so what we found, again, going back to this idea that we're a neighbor, is that what we have to do is help people, I wouldn't necessarily develop, but just be able to unearth those skills, right? Be able to unearth those things. And, we do it in a lot of different ways. As I mentioned, we do a lot of yoga informed practices. We, probably if you grow up around 64th and Honorary, kind of near 63rd and Damon, you're probably one of the few, places, I joked earlier today, we're one of the few places in the hood where every kid on the block can do tree pose, right? Because everybody's grown up with yoga, as a part of their lives. And so, that's a really important skill, is helping people to unlock that and unearth that. We also do a lot of creative expression. We worked with a program called Arts Alive. Sid Smiley was, a volunteer of ours who does a lot of work. And one of the things, Bonnie mentioned the boarded up buildings. We actually had some of the people from our community, were paid as a job to paint murals on these boards in our neighborhood and, create sort of, so when you walk down and see a boarded up building, it's not just this blank board, but it's a board painted by someone in their community with a mural on it that says, even though this building is vacant, life's still here. Like beauty and love are still here in this neighborhood. It's not just an empty building. This building, I mean, Jennifer Hudson spent time growing up on the block that we're on, right? Like that was a part of her childhood, right? But the building that she lives in is vacant now. But there's you listen to that woman sing, and there's beauty that came from that house, and you lose it if you don't pay attention, right? It can be lost to history forever. And so, we can't allow that to happen. And so, in the process of doing that also helps some of the people in our community see that in themselves too, right? Like see that you have the power to create this. And some of this stuff is just amazing. We were able to develop, the NFL has a My Cause, My Cleats Day, and Coach Nagy wore cleats designed by the art force that Agro Chicago this year. My Cause, My Cleats. If you Google, you can see it's got our logo on it, right? Like our community did that, right? And the whole world got to see it. And I think that's awesome, right? And that's awesome, but for the community to see, but it's also awesome for our community to see that that's in me, right? That can be a part of me. And those things help unearth other skills as well. And it's applicable in the workplace. Like if you're just proud of yourself, if you just know that you have it, that takes you so far. It can take you so far, take you through the tough times, help you learn the things you don't know, and give you the sort of fortitude to push through. All of that comes from these foundational things that you have inside of you and giving them a chance to sprout and grow. And I think that's what we try to do. We do it from, a practical perspective, providing soft skills training, but it's also helping to doing work that helps unlock some of these other pieces that people have inside them. I think is really important to doing that as well.
and the campus is spectacular. And then when you do look down each street, especially looking down Honore, you see colorful houses, but they're colorful because the boards that have been painted on them are written with inspiring messages, with messages of love and hope. You spoke about violence on the community. And so I want to talk about these root causes of violence. Is when one hears media reports about violence, they refer to violence that occurs within the community. But you speak about the decades of investment decades of disinvestment as violence against the community. Can you talk more about these types of violence and what iGrow's investment in the community has done on reducing violence, or even in a even broader scale, more than just that beautiful corner of 63rd and Honoré, but how community-based organizations like iGrow can work with our city to address these violences?
Yeah, I mean, people who are, I think in the space, in the sort of academic end of the nonprofit space, you might call it, people who experience bandwidth poverty, or basically what it means is you just don't, if you're focused on survival, as I was mentioning earlier, you don't have enough time to also then focus on some of these other things that aren't essential to you just being able to wake up and eat every day. And I think one of the biggest things that's lost, even going back to how sort of this long process, as you mentioned, of disinvestment. I mean, obviously from the legacy of slavery and all those other things, but even more recently, with desegregation hit a lot of neighborhoods in America. And this is when you kind of pinpoint when neighborhoods in Chicago. I mean, I talked to my aunts and uncles who grew up on the South Side, and my cousins and things who grew up on the South Side. Like when they were there as small children, these neighborhoods were they were neighborhoods like any other neighborhood in Chicago you might experience. And then, as desegregation started to hit America, it was a really interesting thing. It was positive in many ways, but all the schools and all the things that were closed, they didn't move all the white kids to the black school. They took all the black kids to the white school, right? And so then the teachers left, and then there were fewer people who sort of had this ability to navigate the system and advocate. And then that sort of begets other people leaving. And then you see this situation where everyone in the neighborhood is experiencing what's called bandwidth poverty, right? So then there's no space to advocate and talk about the problems that are going on. So even in the Peace House, our water is a tick above the line for like legal drinkability in the United States, right? We're drinking out of, the Hinkley Springs water, dispenser too, because we don't regularly drink the water, right? Because it's not that great. And this isn't, a third world nation. This is 15 minutes from downtown Chicago where this is experienced. And and so our role is not only to help people sort of work through that on a personal level, but to be a megaphone for the community members who want to talk about it. That's one of the big things that I'd like to kind of take on in my, during my tenure as executive director, is this idea of, and you said it towards the end, right after I spoke earlier, of collective power, right? And taking the collective power of our neighborhood, not giving it voice, because our people have voice. Our neighbors have voice, they have power. They don't get the stage often enough. And so we give them the stage, and we give them the mic, and we turn it up to 11 and put it out there for people. And that's how we, that's part of our role in the community, not to speak for our community, but to stand behind our community when they speak and make sure people are listening, make sure people don't turn the channel, keep bringing the attention back to it, so that people don't lose sight of that. Because it's just not right. Like 15% of people, can you imagine any neighborhood in Chicago? Imagine being like, someone saying downtown Chicago, 15% of the people don't have clean water. It's unbelievable to me. Sorry, I'm gonna lose it here for a second, but like, it's water. And it blows my mind every time I say it, right? Water. Just this idea, and that is just so foundational to living and existing, let alone thriving. That if we can allow people to not have clean water, what else will we let slide? Right? If we won't let people have water, that means we'll let kids die and not do anything. That's what that means. It means we'll let people be hungry every night and not do anything. It means we will not invest in schools in the community, and we will close them down and make kids have to travel unsafely to neighborhoods where people might not like the people from their neighborhood. And so they got to try to traverse this dangerous thing just to go to school, so they stop going. We'll let that happen, right? And so we'll let then that cycle of more things to be buried on top of them. And it starts for me with this idea that we won't let everybody in this city, just starting with this city, just have clean drinking water. Like, just do that for us. Give us clean drinking water. And then let's see where we go from there. Because we'll let anything else slide if we won't give people water, right? That's how I feel about it. So, that's our job, is to not let that die, not let that be quiet, not let people ignore that fact. And then not let people, once we get that ticked off, then we don't let people ignore the next fact. And we keep yelling until we're like Andy Dufresne in the Shawshank Redemption. We write one letter a week, and then we'll write two, and then we'll write three until they give us what we want. And that's what we're going to do and continue to do is at iGrow Chicago, to fight for our community.
And we're gonna in a few questions, we're gonna hear some questions from some of our members, but Saul, we want to be writing those letters, both those metaphorical ones and those ones with a bullhorn, right with you. So Maddie and Marla, as our pairs of Sholom Justice, have been collecting some of the questions. And so welcome, Maddie.
Thank you, Rabbi. And Saul, thank you again for speaking with us tonight. It's an absolute honor to have you here. You'll have to excuse me. I've got a few butterflies roaming around inside me as I'm speaking with you. So, but it's been tremendous. I really appreciate it. I know on behalf of all of us, we really appreciate your time. So yeah, Marla's been feeding me a few questions, and I'll pass those along. And so, one of them actually is just following up with something you spoke about very quickly. I think people don't fully understand the impact and the reasons as to why clean drinking water is such a problem. And this has obviously been in the news previously and more recently with what happened in Flint, Michigan. And now that charges have actually been filed against certain city officials. Can you explain a little bit? In Chicago, it seems it's unusual, and it is surprising for people. What is the reason? What's the root cause of this?
Yeah, so a piece of it is certainly, the infrastructure challenges, although, less so in Chicago than it is in Flint. And as someone who grew up in Michigan, I have a special place in my heart for that fight as well. But a lot of it, some of it is also attached to housing insecurity, and things like that. So, people not always having a regular place to sleep, right? A place to even access water. And then there's another piece that I think is really kind of deeply connected here. And so if you look, when you come down our block and you see these vacant buildings, as beautiful as they are, they're still vacant, right? There's still places that should be places where people can live, but they're not. And you wonder why. Well, why can't people buy those and turn those into affordable housing? And we've actually tried. Even during my tenure, we've tried to purchase some of these buildings to use for our space and use for community space and things like that. And we've actually found that there are a number of buildings in West Englewood that are owned by sort of shadow LLCs and businesses from international corporations that will own. So if there's a house on our block that's vacant and you want to buy it, first, if you can find like the realtor or the person who owns it to do it, which can be like a weeks-long undertaking because you get these numbers and you call them and nobody ever answers. But if you can get someone on the phone, then you find they're actually owned by these as parts of tracts of 10, 20, 100, 200 houses. So you can't even buy one house to just use it for housing, that you have to buy the whole tract. And so the buildings stay vacant because no one wants to do it. The landlords don't keep the buildings up because they're these LLCs, and they'll transfer it to a family member's LLC, and again, in another nation, we found some in the UK and the Middle East and all these sort of places around the world. And so you can't do anything about the disrepair of these buildings, right? So if you're living next door to a place where the plumbing is out of control, right, because nobody's taking care of it, what does that do to the whole sort of system of how water is transferred throughout our neighborhood, right? So it's all those sort of things kind of working together. And the idea, again, another thing that would never fly. I mean, you imagine someone saying you can't buy a house in Lincoln Park or you got to buy 500 houses. Just imagine that happening and what kind of fury would be rained down by people in that community. But it flies in West Englewood, even though, community organizations are fighting it, the alderman is fighting it, a lot of places are, but there's just I don't want to say there's nothing can be done about it. There's nothing that's allowed to be done about it. So, I think that's a piece of the challenge as well.
Yeah, so this leads into another question. When Mayor Lightfoot came in, she indicated that she had a commitment to investing in disenfranchised neighborhoods. And I'm wondering, do you have an opportunity to work with city officials? And have you seen changes since she's come in and she's, attempted to make these changes? What have you seen in the community?
Yeah, so there certainly has been a lot of development in Greater Inglewood. I think the problem is that West Inglewood often isn't thought of when we think about Inglewood, right? So you see a lot of the development, particularly around 63rd and Halsted, near Kennedy King, in that corridor, and surrounding areas. There's a great deal of development, and we're excited for that for our community, right? Because a rising tide lifts all boats, as they say. But I would like for someone to help me find it west of Ashland. I'd need a little help finding that development, right? And that's not, I don't think it's necessarily a problem of a commitment to doing the work. I think it's a recognition of what the challenges are and where the challenges are. Because I think, again, we think with a north side, or we think with or at least a non-south side mentality, right? So if we think, all right, you go from Halsted to Ashland, it's, what was it, 8 blocks, 10 blocks, something like that.
Yeah.
To most of us, that's fine. We just hop in a car and we can go to the Whole Foods there. To our community, there's 3 problems. A, I don't have a car. B, Whole Foods is way too expensive for me. And C, if I want to walk I got to cross through neighborhoods that I can't get through safely,
Right.
And then the D is if I have to take the bus now, I might get COVID. I might get COVID-19. I might get, like that. That's like going to those public spaces is just not safe, right? So it's like all of these factors make it so those 10 blocks may as well be 10 miles, right? In terms of our people's ability to access those things.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, there's development, but we don't think about those sort of how people get there and how people access those things, right? The same with healthcare accessibility, right? Like people in our neighborhood can have healthcare, but where do you go to get your health taken care of? Where do you go to get your mental health taken care of? Any of those things. Living in a traumatic environment, we're starting to see suicides from people in our neighborhood. We're starting to see, not starting to see, but we're seeing these become increasing issues, right? And people kind of falling into despair. And there's just nowhere to send them in the community where they can readily get, have easy access to high quality like mental health services, right? That are prepared, that are targeted at the Black community and the specific challenges that you face being Black in America, right? So all of those challenges kind of pile on top of each other. So there's development. It's just needs a couple tweaks to actually reach our people.
Yeah, thank you. So I think we have just maybe time for a couple more questions. Is that okay, Rabbi?
We're gonna do just one more question. I'm sorry, Maddie.
Okay. And I'm sorry, I know I'm long-winded, so we don't get too many questions, but I get on my little rants and I can't help it.
That's great. It's great. So,
but you can email me, Saul Anderson at iGrowChicago. I'll answer any questions you got.
Yeah, Maddie, I'm gonna ask this last question here.
Okay, go ahead.
I must ask, as our bring it home, what is iGrow's goals for the next 5 years? And importantly for us, what can our congregation, our community do to help you and the iGrow community, the West Englewood community? How can we partner?
Yeah. So I think, our biggest goal is around this idea, as I mentioned earlier, of being a megaphone for the challenges in our neighborhood, right? So we sort of categorize it as building a bridge from West Englewood to the rest of the world so people can see and experience. And I want to just say the challenges, but really, really get to know our community members on a human level, right? Sit down and meet people and talk to people and spend time in community with people so you don't see them as this human being who's so distant from you because they live in a different part of the city or a different city in the nation, but you see them as another human being who you might share things in common with, who is suffering in a way that you don't, right? And build those bridges there. We also, want to build bridges within our community to create opportunities for not leadership development. I try to be very capable about this, but to unlock the leaders that exist in our community and give them an opportunity to really shine. So that, mentioned our Wisdom Council. They're a group of women from our neighborhood, all of whom have lived in the neighborhood for 40 plus years, who sit above the board in our organizational chart, who make sure that the things that we're doing are actually beneficial for the community. That I love that group, and Miss Gwen and Miss Ora and Mama Pearl and they, Miss Feline, they all give me wisdom, they give me guidance, they give me support. There's few things in this world, as I say, that comfort you as much as a elderly Black woman calling you baby and letting you know it's gonna be okay. And like I need that sometimes just to get through the job, right? And so I get that from them. And but we need more leadership development, because by virtue of them being elders, we need more people to come up underneath and provide that leadership as well. So there's a piece there. And then we also want to be a great champion for equity, not only in our community, but in this world. So we're starting with ourselves, fixing our pay, the way that we pay people. So about 52% of our hours are directly paid out to people who live in the neighborhood that we work. And that's very important to us. But we need to, if we're going to be doing that, I believe that a true living wage in Chicago, and there's statistics that back this up, that you need to make about $60,000 a year to be able to afford the average 2-bedroom apartment at market rate. So that breaks down to about $30 an hour. So over the next several years, we want to push towards that, and make sure that none of our part-time staff are paid that on an hourly basis, and none of our full-time staff are paid less than that on an annual basis. So that's what we're working towards there. So we're doing that. We want to do that internally as well. And then also we have a big piece that's about educating our community about the challenges that the issues that created the challenges that our community faces. So we have our Hummingbird Book Club, where we're signing people up to read books about structural racism and learn more about those situations, and then have conversations about what we can do together. And so that's we're doing things like that, and we're doing some equity work in our staff and our board, and anti-racism training to accompany that. So those are our big overarching goals. And then in terms of how Temple Sholom can be involved with, I think the biggest thing is, we got to wait out this pandemic a little bit, but when we can do that, we have so many opportunities to come in and do work with us. I mean, our community garden is we have a lot of folks who come and volunteer, people who like to garden, people who know about gardening. We have people come in and who do healthy cooking classes in our garden with us, or people who bring, they have expertise or experience in the arts and want to see if, members of our community want to learn about that. We have people bring that, and we do that in the community as well. We're not taking a lot of used donated items right now to protect from the pandemic, but we always have need for coats. If we can, if we can be given new coats, shoes, clothing, toiletry items, hand sanitizer, masks, all those things are things our community needs right now in this moment. And a lot of those things are things that they'll need for the long term as well. I think the biggest thing is that, but the biggest thing is to come to our Peace Campus, meet our people, talk to the people in the community, and talk to people in the community about what they want in their neighborhood, what they want to see in their neighborhood, right? What they want for their children to be able to have, everything that every parent wants for their kids in the future, right? And work and, use those conversations as opportunities, not only to build with us, but also to talk to your friends, to your neighbors, to your family members, to understand, so that they have a greater understanding of what's going on. This is we're all here, Chicagoland, residents, that's going on in many cases 10, 15 minutes away from where they live. And that's a big piece too, is helping us be that sort of megaphone. But we always have volunteer opportunities. We always have opportunities to jump in. But I think right now a lot of our engagement is virtual. And I think a great way to jump in is, as I said before, is our Hummingbird Book Club. So, you can go to our website to learn more about that, igrowchicago.org, and check that out and be a part of the conversation that we want to lead to larger conversations about fixing the system that is designed to oppress our neighbors and many people of color all across this country.
Thank you, Saul. I cannot wait for us to get down there with you. I can't wait to get my hand in some soil and plant some vegetables.
We're ready.
Thank you. I want to thank you. I also want to thank our whole Sholom Justice team, led by Maddie Major and Marla Gross. And I also very much want to thank Bonnie for helping make this connection and for continuing to do just incredible work in our community. Thank you, Saul. I look forward to continuing this beautiful partnership.
As do I. Thank you all thank you so much for the opportunity. Just so glad to be able to share a little bit about our beautiful neighborhood, and I hope that you all will come and be a part of it. Yeah. And thank you, Bonnie, for the connection, for being on both sides and helping us come together tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And also, I cannot end any evening without thanking Toby Sanders, our real force behind Sholom Justice, both in her visionary work and her getting things done way about her. So thank you, everyone. Shabbat Shalom. Be well. Shabbat Shalom, friends.
Thank you. Thank you.